Welcome to the channel. This is No Expense Spent, and we are going to be doing a model kit today, or starting on a model kit today. This one is not exactly a challenge, but it's one that a friend in the States has sent me. He's going to be working on the same kit, and we're going to see what we end up with. We both have very different approaches to what we like to build, so it should be an interesting little challenge, I suppose. And it's going to be this one. Now, it's a fairly old kit. I don't think MPC originally made it, don't quote me on that, but I've seen quite a few of these built up and they do look like they build up quite nicely. It does have some nice little optionals in there, and it comes with a trailer and a motorbike. I've never built a motorbike, at least not like this. I've done a few Games Workshop-y ones, and it has all of your components and things on the back. So let's see what is in the box. Oh, here we go. Ooh. So we have got a couple of different wheel options in here. We've got some more sort of turbo rec looking wheels and some wire wheels over here. Lots of chrome doodads, bumpers. Yeah, now I do have for this, this one. Chrome can be a bit of a nuisance on kits, so I did pick up some of this a little while ago, which apparently this stuff is really good for gluing chrome parts onto painted kits. Because if you use super glue, the chrome blooms, which you don't want. We have some tyres, and you can put these so they're white wall out or white wall in, depending on what kind of tyres you want. Shan't give the game away on what I'm doing with this. I've got some ideas. What else? Ooh, all the glass stuff. So this is the main glass for the car, so the windscreen and the rear screen, and we have the tail lights there as well. The main body with the chassis. It's one of those kits where it's just a body and a chassis, and then you have your opening bonnet or hood. I like building these. They tend to go together quite nicely, and I don't have to faff about with doors and things. Initial inspection, the flashing's not too bad on this one. Our other one has the half vinyl top there. Looks like motorbike parts in that one, and the trailer as well. Engine parts and interior. Now, I don't like doing engines as much as my friend does, so my engine's probably going to be a little bit boring and his is probably going to be quite nice. A little metal rod. I assume this is going to be an axle, probably for the trailer. And what else? Ooh, that looks like that might be some decals. Transfers. Yeah, looks like there's some pinstriping things in there. We'll have a look at that when I get that open. And finally, the destructions. You can generally put these together without this, but it can help with one or two sub-assemblies. So we shan't ignore that completely. And of course, nothing in the box. It's now empty. Quite a few pieces on this kit. It's fairly straightforward. Happily, kits like this don't have a huge amount of intricate pieces. They're actually quite fun to build. On this one, it looks like we've got the trailer tyres, the bike tyres and main chassis, and the bonnet for the car. And the bonnet on these, normally, I haven't seen anything to contradict what I'm about to say, aren't hinged. So normally the bonnet just plops on and just sits in the hole to cover everything up. And that's fine. For a display model, that's not a problem. The main part of the body has no opening panels. So the only panel that does anything close to opening is the bonnet. The doors, the trunk, boot, they're all shut. And that makes the build a lot quicker. There's a lot less components to worry about, and you can generally get a nicer finish. The interior tub is just that. It's a one piece. Back seats moulded in. The door card details are actually moulded into the sides here, and there's a very faint texture for the carpet. Now it's a little bit hard to show you all of this because it's white, and white doesn't show up on camera terribly well. The details are quite shallow, so there's not a lot you can do with it. For the chassis, again, it's all sculpted on, so you have the wishbones up here, prop shaft, rear axle, and none of that turns. This metal rod that I thought might be for the trailer, there's actually a hole drilled in here, so this is the rear chassis which will allow the wheels to turn. The front wheels, going off how I've done these kits before, will have suspension and hubs and that sort of thing. So it won't be active suspension, but you'll be able to turn the wheels and pose it and that sort of thing. Now there are a couple of options for the roof on these. You can just keep it plain, like it is here, with just a hard top. Or you can use these pieces. This, I'm pretty sure, is for the T-top option, so you'd have to cut the roof open. And this is a half final which you can use in combination with the T-top or the roof as it is. I think I'm probably just going to do the half final on the back. I think that's going to work best for what I have in mind. The rest of the interior is on this sprue, and you've got 2 bucket seats and a dashboard, and that's it. It's nice that the dashboard's separate. That means that when we put the decals on for the radio and dials, it's going to be a lot easier. You've also got your bulkhead and your radiator panel here, and I think those are hubs. I think they're the front hub components. We'll find out later. This sprue, well, it's definitely a steering wheel. I think that's a bike wheel, and I don't know what that bit is. Maybe it's an exhaust, maybe it's part of the coolant system on the engine. On this sprue we have all the fiddly little bits. Now this is the sprue that my friend will like building, because this is where all the engine things are, and that's his thing. He does a much nicer job than I ever will. I'll do my best. It's not the bit I'm passionate about. We've also got little mirrors and a little battery, and yeah, this is the boring sprue for me. This one is a different engine because this one has the motorbike engine on it, fan cowling for the car, and then portions of trailer. So trailer chassis, the main bar that the bike goes onto, and some other bits and pieces that I don't know what they are yet, but we'll find out. Obviously the glass, and that just pops inside the body shell. I'm not going to do that at the moment. I try and handle the glass as little as possible because I don't want to mark or scratch it. Or I might want to mark and scratch it. I've not decided. And the big chrome sprue, which we saw in the packet. The chrome on this is pretty nice. There's a little bit of flashing on these components, but I am a little bit nervous about the bike sections here because they are very delicate. So I'm going to have to be very careful when I put those things together. I think this is a luggage rack. I think I'll probably use that because that's such a ridiculous thing. And what I thought was decals really is. There's all kinds of pinstriping details, number plates or license plates, and little doodads on here, so I have lots of options for what to do. Don't know what I'm using off this. I hadn't really thought about doing any pinstriping, so maybe my direction will change. Oh, and the other thing is these are the tyres, and they're just nice generic little things. They've got some lettering on the sides, A little bit of tread detail on there. You know, the tyres in these kits tend to be quite nice. And again, I've got ideas with these, but we'll see what I end up doing. Definitely going to start with the motorbike. I think, given the time I've got today and how fiddly and delicate it is, I'd rather it be completed and out of the way. A lot of it I can hand paint as well. There's not much point beyond primer me doing things like this with spray paint. It's going to be much easier to hand paint that. And I've got some colour ideas. There's a lot of cleaning up to do on these parts though. Unfortunately, for some reason, these very small parts have quite a bit of flashing on them. But I've found from experience, generally, it's easier just to spray everything and then clean up the edges after you've actually primed everything, and then you can just put the paint on afterwards. These are our tiny pieces, all primed, and there are some even tinier pieces on the chrome sprue, which I'm a little bit nervous about because these chrome plated parts are very slippery, and the smaller they are, the harder they are to keep hold of. And there are some tiny little throttle body things which I need to stick on to some tiny components for the engine, and I am not looking forward to that one bit, so we shall ignore this sprue for now and instead focus on what needs doing here. With everything primed, what I can start to do is build stuff up, and some of the things that need filing are like the end here, where I've got to file these surfaces flat before they'll meet up, glue it together and then file off where the sprue was before I can even paint this tiny part. There is unfortunately a bit of a casting error on one of the trailer's wheels. That's going to be really difficult to make perfect, so I'm going to keep it imperfect and embrace that as part of the way everything looks. I think that's the more sensible choice. I have decided on a colour for the trailer, and I think I've decided on a colour for the bike. I found a great colour for the car, but I think the can is a bit dead, unfortunately. The other thing that's important to remember is if you've got surfaces that glue together, you do need to get the paint off. Now, I've used a plastic primer on this, which is from Halfords, not sponsored. That's just where I got it, because I found it's quite good for these sorts of kits, this sort of plastic. When I'm doing regular miniatures, I just use miniature specific paint primers because they tend to stick better with the miniature specific paint. And we'll use a bit of Humbrol's liquid poly. Again, not sponsored. I'm not sponsored by anybody, I just say it anyway. Oh, bloody safety lids. There we go. Smells like pear drops. It's rather a lot later than I was hoping, and yeah, this bike is putting up a fight. These parts are incredibly fiddly and tiny and have quite a bit of flashing I've had to take off. They're very flexible, and I'm terrified of snapping any of this because it's almost impossible to hide a repair when you snap pieces like this. The rear wheel, the components for this were warped, so that was awkward to put together, and the axle that's built into it is way too big, so I've had to file that right down without trying to file the sidewalls down as well, and trying to keep it flat so that it doesn't sit wonky in the frame when it goes on the bike. The engine's fine, that went together okay. The little bit here is fiddly as anything, and you sort of have to guess which way up it goes. But that bit's ready to paint at least, and then I can put chrome pieces on it. not too bad to get into the frame once the frame's together. However, before I can glue the two halves of the frame together, I have to paint the wheels, and before I can put the wheels into the frame, I have to assemble quite a lot of the chrome stuff, which again is impossibly fiddly and tiny and very fragile. So this is starting to stress me out a little bit. I'm not going to finish the bike today, I know that much. But I have got the trailer dry fit together and ready to paint. So I'm going to focus on that instead. This is a nice easy one to finish off, and then at least I'll have something completed. Just not exactly how I was planning this to go. We're back from the spray booth, and yeah, the colour I wanted to use on the wheels, the can had gone bad, so I had to choose a different colour, which was Citron Alpine White, and for the trailer is Ford Signal Green, and I had just enough. As I was doing the underside, the can ran out, which, you know, is basically perfect. Happily, the trailer is nice and easy to build. There's nothing particularly fancy about it, which is super. I will need to put a little bit of paint on the axle, but that just threads in through there. And then the wheels literally push on. There we go, one little trailer. Now, I can't do the next stage today on this because this paint is still quite soft, so I'm going to have to leave this until tomorrow, but of course in video time, that will be a lot less time than that. Picking up where we left off, the paint has now cured overnight, so I can actually work with it. There's not a lot of detail on the trailer. There's a little bit here and there, but not a great amount, so this shouldn't take very long. I'm going to start with the wheels. While I wait for the black paint here to dry, just a couple of coats on there. I want to be able to paint the other half of the axle, but obviously I can't hold it because the bit I need to hold is currently covered in wet paint. I'm going to do the leaf springs on the trailer in black. I've been very much in two minds about the mudguards here. I think I'm just going to leave them green, but I did consider maybe painting them black or another colour. I think, considering how low detail the trailer is, it's probably better to leave them as they are and not worry about that bit too much. It does help when you press record. I want to show a little bit of wear on the trailer. So the tow hitch here has a coat of black. This will be the base coat for some silver. You don't have to use Citadel paints. I'm using them because it's what I've got. I've also put a little bit of dry brushing of black here and in the stop up here, because that's going to make the silver show up a little bit more when I put that on here. Next thing I want to do is just a little bit of wash around some of these rivets. Well, rivets, bolts, whatever it is they happen to be. Also adds just a little bit of patina and wear and that sort of thing. Not going overboard with it, because I want this trailer to look clean, but just like it's had a little bit of use. And this is just the silver. And being quite light. I don't want this to be fully silver, I just want it to have a hint to suggest that the paint's worn off the high points. And this trailer's probably been used for more than just the bike that we'll see on it. It's probably like the guy's regular bike transporter trailer. That's why it might not match the colour of the bike, because I've not told you what colour that's going to be yet. It will be revealed later. It's just an old green trailer. Every now and again gets a fresh coat of paint to spruce it up a bit. And I think that level of wear and use will be just about right for what this is. So I'll set this piece aside for now, let this dry. And then we can move on to these. I haven't glued this axle into this wheel, the paint has glued this axle into this wheel. Oh well, at least it was just the one. I'm using some dark brown because we have these casting defects on this wheel and they're going to be very difficult to remove, so instead I thought I would embrace it. Maybe they had a puncture and this is their spare. It's a bit manky, a bit rusty. That's one of the things with models as well. If you have a defect, sometimes you can use it to your advantage and actually turn it into part of the storytelling that you're doing. We'll do a little bit of weathering on that other wheel to match. Now, I'm hoping this isn't too washed out for you. The camera seems to be seeing things very blue today. I'm guessing it's because it's such an overcast day. But I don't want to go overboard with it, I just want a little bit of weathering. Make the backs a bit browner, because these probably see a lot less cleaning. So that's as much weathering as I want to put on here, and to deal with the hubcaps I need to put these on the trailer itself. It does say in the instructions not to glue these in place, and I won't be doing that because your axle slides into that little tube there, and I'm going to put just a bit of glue in the socket on this wheel, and that will hold it onto the axle but won't glue it to the trailer. Like so. Now if this other one that has been glued on with paint comes unstuck, I can always re-glue that, but at the moment it seems quite happy to stay where it is. So our last job is the hubcaps. I'm going to use some of this stuff because we do have some bits of chrome all over the place, but I'm not going to do the whole thing in this. Wheels are a bit easier to do now they're actually on the trailer. I'm going to use a combination of the black base coat like we did with the silver wear and that same silver, because I want these hubcaps to look quite dull. I don't want to look bright and shiny chrome, but I need a little bit of chrome just to sell that illusion. I also don't want this base coat to be very smooth, I want it to be a bit blotchy. Again, this is part of building up your layers and textures. Sometimes you don't want a uniform finish. I'm not going to worry too much about the black drying because that's going to add to what I'm doing if it does smudge with the silver. One thing to be aware of with this stuff is you can't clean it with soapy water like you can acrylics. You do have to use a solvent or an acetone or something to be able to clean this off. So it's a bit of a brush killer. Looks like there might just be enough on the outside here from giving it a shake, so we'll give that a go because I barely need any for this. All I want to do is put a couple of specks of chrome on so that it looks like the chrome has been lifting off and it's been repainted. You know, these wheels have led a much harder life than the rest of the trailer. But they still go on because it looks better than no hubcaps at all. There we go. It just means that you have that little difference in light on the hubcaps, and it sells that idea that it's old and worn out. I'm going to add just a bit as well on the tow hitch. Right, well, this is as finished as it can be. There's not really any more detail on the trailer here. The decal sheet that comes with the kit, I might make use of some of it. I'm going to see how everything looks when it's all together. I don't want to go too far on the details on this until I've done the rest. So we might revisit this and we might add some more weathering, might change some colours. But for now, I'm going to call the bike trailer done. I'll get some fresh varnish on this and then I'll do the glamour shots. Don't forget, subscribe and all that kind of business so you don't miss the next episode. Patrons, obviously you'll get to see the next episode whether or not you're subscribed. Just make sure that you're still a Patreon. I shall see you in the next instalment when we're probably going to do the motorbike.